Good afternoon, friends. I hope you're doing really well. This is Tracy Brown, your somatic nutrition therapist and attuned eating expert, and my team and I help people heal their relationship with food in a partnership with us and you in the room. And we want to help you and your nervous system feel relatively safe enough inside around food and body image. So in today's video, we're going to talk a lot about the mental, emotional, and kind of behavioral, physical indicators if you're in fight or flight. And more importantly, like, well, what's that got to do with my food and all that? And it's very important because this is the missing piece for most people's full recovery, is that if you don't feel relatively safe enough inside, you're just kind of performing doing the right thing, but it doesn't feel all that embodied. And then the next time you're in this high activated state, and if you don't really understand what's happening inside, we tend to kind of reach for what we know, the autopilot response. So I'm just going to kind of run through. I've got my little list on my computer here just to make sure I don't forget too much, right? So let's just jump right in. So in sympathetic, mentally, remember in Monday's video, we talked a lot about just the anatomy and physiology of what it feels like inside when you're in sympathetic. So not so much like the grinding kind of stomach feeling and the butterflies and the buzziness inside, which is all true, which we're going to talk a little bit about, but literally what your heart is doing. There's increased respiration, there's increased eye dilation, there's a tightening of like all the muscles, there's a decrease in digestion, just digestive enzymes, stuff like that. So if you missed that, go to Monday's video. That stuff's very important because if you're in fight or flight, your gastric motility is just slower. So you might not feel like eating even though you mentally know you should. And this is where the eating diet part of your brain will want to sneak back and, well, you're not hungry, so you shouldn't eat, right? And it's like, no, not always that's true. Sometimes there's the pragmatic of like, I need to eat, I'm in recovery, and I don't want to scare my body into thinking, oh, the bad days are happening again, where I don't get fed what I want when I need, that kind of stuff, all right? So let's just talk about the mental. When people are in sympathetic, I see a lot of racing thoughts and trying to figure things out versus settling in and observing what's happening. Our brain wants to jump to, ooh, there's a sensation inside, and what is this? And do I have a disease? What's going on with me? Or maybe, do I have something wrong with me? Or maybe you're just in flight. And that sensation feels unfamiliar. So if it's unfamiliar, and if unfamiliar is hooked with, that's a threat, every little creak and crack and noise inside is going to feel like a threat. Doesn't mean it's true, but that's what we've gotten some overcoupling with going on inside. So I typically see any kind of calculating, tracking in a way that you're trying to control, calories, macros, all that kind of stuff, is a racing thought response. I think OCD is a threat response, and the way your brain's trying to deal with that. Food rules in general, just going on a diet in general to try to like control the state inside. That's a sympathetic response. Or it's a sympathetic mental behavior or physical behavior to try to control the fear. When I'm talking with people, whether it's in session, at the grocery store, and I might ask somebody a question, they get really revved up mentally and they're telling me like 10,000 details to the thing because they can't manage what's happening, or they change abruptly, constantly thoughts in a sentence. That's a sympathetic thing. Our brain can't keep on one track because there's just too much sympathetic going on, racing through, okay? That goes for fight or flight, okay? And we'll also have probably some intrusive thoughts as well, intrusive thoughts or images or whatever, okay? Emotionally, what I see around food and digestion and body image is that we get easily flooded, overwhelmed, anxious, angry, rigid, defensive, those things. And the emotions like heightened to the experience. So there's a dissonance of like, I feel this way, but this just happened. So a really normal example for somebody who's in a flight response around their food is they get really anxious approaching the meal. They get anxious and then feel guilty. Guilt and all that, shame has a little bit of juice to it, but it's mostly a dorsal response, but there's some anxiety there too. But just have a lot of obsession about what they just ate. That's a sympathetic response because the emotion of it is not congruent with what you just did. I ate a cupcake and now I'm panicking. All you did was eat like a combination of protein, carbs, and fat. It's not magical weight gain food. It doesn't have any moral significance yet. It feels like there is a threat. So that's a good example. We're getting flooded with emotions that aren't congruent with the action just that happened. Okay? And so we don't have enough of a window of tolerance to be able to like, wait a minute, I'm really freaking out here about the cupcake. What's connected with this? What's going on? And that's when you start to, when you can feel enough space from that emotion to get in your window, then you can kind of obviously unpack that. So there's that. All right, so that's the mental and emotional, kind of the symptoms you're going to notice if you're in sympathetic around your food. And then we'll wrap it up with some of the physical. So we talked about this in Monday's video: fast and shallow exhales, increased heart rate, your body's braced, you have a rigid body, you're like in this like springy kind of action mode. Constipation, delayed gastric emptying, gastric emptying. And I know some people watching this might have gastroparesis. That comes over a long, long amount of time of that, but most people can recover from a slower metabolism by just eating more, and that gets fixed. But in fight and flight, things just don't move as quickly because your body has to have a focus. And if you're in threat, the focus is safety, seeking safety, not in digesting well, right? But unfortunately, some of the things I see when people are in fight or flight and they don't have a window and they don't have a well-rounded and know when to execute what tools they might have in their toolbox is where I see things of self-harm, the typical things you think of, but also just not able to capture and reject thoughts of like, I'm never going to get better, I suck, I'm not fit enough, I'm too big, all those racing thoughts are really negative. It's hard to manage those in fight or flight. And they come from flight or flight as well. And I actually consider that it's learned mental self-harm, but it is what it is. It's if you've been rejected, for sure. Some other things I see people do when they're in fight and they don't have other tools to manage it, of course, is any kind of disordering behavior. So restricting and chronic dieting and binging and purging, and even bending to slow down, restricting to numb, restricting to suppress their rage or express their rage or avoid sadness, whatever it is. Excessive activity, of course, using any kind of substances or pills or whatever to get rid of food, whether it's laxative, diet pills, whatever. And physically, again, where you remember you're in that fight or flight or this really high, stuck, kind of freezy kind of place. Okay, so again, why this happens, it's up to us to be in doing the work of being like, what triggers me into fight or flight throughout the day, and then ultimately impacts my food, impacts my judgment, impacts my ability to feel like I have agency and take action, on what my values are. So that's it for today. I just want to make sure that people kind of understand this is what fight or flight looks like. These behaviors, these thought patterns, these emotional ways, these ways of experiencing emotion around certain things that happen, to us, outside of us, or inside of us. All right. And obviously it really impacts our food intake, impacts how we take care of ourselves, feed ourselves, and view ourselves. And remember, our nervous systems are always doing this dance of, is it safe for me to connect, or do I have to stay in protect mode? And that's sometimes one of the biggest barriers when it comes to reaching out for help, getting help, receiving the help, taking action on the knowledge you have, is that if you're in this flight response, now you're in fight or flight, you're in protect. And that's where people get stuck and they feel frustrated because they know what to do, but they can't act on it because there's the barrier of this. And there's also other barriers too, of course, in attachment and feeling safe to trust people and to get help and to reach what you need. That's part of it too. But these two things, the threat response system and the attachment system, they work together to try to protect you. Okay, so Anyway, we'll be talking more and more about this, of course, over the year. If you want more information, of course, I have lots of videos on this on my YouTube channel. All you gotta do is type in my name with the RD at the end, and then flight freezer please, trauma response, whatever, and you'll get more videos. I've been doing these for a long time, so there's lots more to learn. If you need help with to learn self-regulation, you need co-regulation. You know, being in proximity with a safe other to be like, if I'm in my window of tolerance, it's so much easier for you to be able to do it because your nervous system is, oh, like I'm neurocepting here, that things are okay for me to really be here and not run away or to fight the care or to shut down from the care. So if you need some help with that, that will definitely accelerate your recovery efforts. So you need some help, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to just chat with you a minute to see how we can help you. So thank you so much for watching, and next week we'll talk more about the shutdown response and what that feels mentally, how that feels like mentally, emotionally, and physically as well. So thank you for watching. Please pass this along to people that they're like, they've been trying so hard for a long time to get thriving in their lives, and they're wondering what's missing. Maybe this was what's missing for them. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.